we go. Okay, so last time we were in Daniel chapter 10, and that was part 1 of the dream that Daniel had about the ram and the goat. So tonight we're going to look at Daniel chapter 11. And before we get there, though, I actually found something the other day that I thought was, it was part of one of my devotionals that I wanted to read before we start. It's in Ephesians, so it's in the New Testament. Ephesians is after 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, then Ephesians. And it's chapter 6, verse 12. I don't want to lose my spot there. So Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. And it says, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So that, again, sums up a little of what we talked about last time. Last time in chapter 10, Daniel was standing on the edge of the river, and he saw a vision of a man, and then a second man, and he was the only one that could see this stuff. No one else could see it, but they could feel it, and a couple of them took off running and hid, right? So Daniel saw this. He saw the vision, he saw the men, and he was talking to them. One of them, in fact, even came over and touched him at one point to help him off the ground, and at another point talked to him, and this helped him to stand. So I thought Ephesians summed that up really well, that even though we can't see it, there's stuff going on all around us. There's a war being waged, and we're not fighting it, but someone is fighting it for us, because we are still a part of that war. All right, so chapter 11. When I was looking this up and doing my study on it, the one study that I went through, it was written on the other one. I got a lot of this information from JesusPlusNothing.com. And the one summary said that Daniel chapter 11, their headline was, "A Look at Three Madmen." And I thought, well, that's pretty intriguing. So, let's find out about these madmen. Daniel chapter 11, verses 1 through 4. All right. "The kings of the south and the north. Now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will appear in Persia, and then a 4th, who will be far richer than all the others. When he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. Then a mighty king will appear, who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. After he has appeared, his empire will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 winds of heaven. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others." So this is one of the angels explaining to Daniel what his dream meant. This tells of the coming future of the Medo-Persian Empire and the Grecian Empire. The 4th king is Xerxes I from Persia. The king of Greece is Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, he dies at age 32. His 2 sons are murdered, so his empire is divided among his 4 generals, his 4 top military men. And that is represented when we saw the picture of the 4-headed leopard and the 4 horns on the goat. Do we have those pictures? There's a lot of this king of the south, king of the north. We're going to get into it. It seems like it's a lot of back and forth. It actually covers quite a long period of time, so we'll get into that. All right, so verses 5 through 20. Okay, we're going to be reading for a bit here. Okay, had to make sure I put my dots in there so I know when to stop. All right, the king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his own kingdom with great power. After some years, they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to make an alliance, but she will not retain her power, and he and his power will not last. In those days, she will be handed over, together with her royal escort and her father and the one who supported her. One from her family line will arise to take her place. He will attack the forces of the king of the north and enter his fortress. He will fight against them and be victorious. He will also seize their gods, their metal images, and their valuable articles of silver and gold, and carry them off to Egypt. For some years, he will leave the king of the north alone. Then the king of the north will invade the realm of the king of the south, but he will retreat to his own country. He doesn't stay. His sons will prepare for war and assemble a great army, which will sweep on like an irresistible flood and carry the battle as far as his fortress. Then the king of the south will march out in a rage and fight against the king of the north, who will raise a large army, but it will be defeated. When the army is carried off, the king of the south will be filled with pride and will slaughter many thousands. Yet he will not remain triumphant. For the king of the north will muster another army, larger than the first, and after several years, he will advance with a huge army fully equipped. In those times, many will rise against the king of the south. The violent men among your own people will rebel in fulfillment of the vision, but without success. Then the king of the north will come and build up siege ramps and will capture a fortified city. The forces of the south will be powerless to resist. Even their best troops will not have the strength to stand. The invader will do as he pleases. No one will be able to stand against him. He will establish himself in the beautiful land and will have the power to destroy it. He will determine to come with the might of his entire kingdom and will make an alliance with the king of the south. And he will give him a daughter in marriage in order to overthrow the kingdom. But his plans will not succeed or help him. Then he will turn his attention to the coastlands and will take many of them. But a commander will put an end to his insolence and turn his insolence back upon him. After this, he will turn back toward the fortresses of his own country, but will stumble and fall to be seen no more. I had to 20. This only went to 19. All right, we're going to do one more. His successor will send out a tax collector to maintain the royal splendor. In a few years, however, he will be destroyed, yet not in anger or in battle. That's why I went to 20. I got it now. So in verses 5 through 20, these are the kings to come. The first one is Ptolemy the First. He ruled Egypt. He will, not in Daniel's time. This is yet to come in Daniel's time. This is history for us. He ruled Egypt and North Africa. He chose those two because they have lots of resources and natural defenses. All right, he has the River Nile, which is hard to get things up to, and you can be seen for quite a ways so they can prepare. And just the coastline and what was in the ground and around them gave him a lot of natural barriers that he didn't even have to build something up that was already there. So Ptolemy the First, he's the king of the south. The king of the north is Seleucus. He ruled Syria and Mesopotamia. All right. Now this period, in these 15 verses, verses 5 through 20, this period actually covers almost 150 years. These battles and alliances take place over several generations. So when they talk about the king of the south here and the king of the north there and this daughter marrying here, it's actually several generations. It's not all just one person. But when you have a family line and you are the ruler, people in your line tend to say that that person is your father, or they take on your name. So it almost seems like it's the same person carrying on. All right, so there was a lot of back and forth, but remember that's 150 years that this is happening. And in there, again, they refer to the beautiful land, and the beautiful land is Israel. All right. Okay, 21 through 24. Now we're taking it in shorter bits. That just seemed, there was no sense breaking that up when I read through it. 21. He will be succeeded by a contemptible person who has not been given the honor of royalty. He will invade the kingdom when its people feel secure, and he will seize it through intrigue. He doesn't overpower them with an army. He comes in with sweet talk. Then an overwhelming army will be swept away before him. Both it and a prince of the covenant will be destroyed. After coming to an agreement with him, he will act deceitfully, and with only a few people, he will rise to power. When the richest provinces feel secure, he will invade them and will achieve what neither his fathers nor his forefathers did. He will distribute plunder, loot, and wealth among his followers. He will plot the overthrow of fortresses, but only for a time. This refers to Antiochus IV Epiphanes. We talked about him last time.
Isn't a time 1 year?
What did we say a time was?
I thought we said it was 1 year.
Was it 1 year? Because we had a times, which was 2 years, and then half a time, which was 6 months.
Yeah.
All right. Don't read too much into that one, though. That's not necessarily a year. It just means that there's a definite amount of time. He doesn't have free reign as long as he wants. So this refers to talking about the one who was not born into royalty. He will seize through intrigue. We talked about Antiochus IV Epiphanes. He's the one that he was not a royal. He was not part of the king's family. But the king's son was killed when he was very small, very young. And Antiochus sweet-talked his way in there. And next thing you know, he's in charge. All right. He came out of the Syrian branch of the Greek Empire. He seized power while the rightful heir was too young to rule. He's the biggest type, or the biggest picture, the best picture of the coming Antichrist. He liked to be called Theos Epiphanes, which means God made manifest. He believed himself to be God on earth. No one was like him. No one was better than him. He was what everyone else wanted to be in his mind. And he took over through force and deception. Not a lot of force. He didn't have a big army. He didn't come rushing in. Instead, it was little things that made people afraid of him. Little things that they knew if they crossed him, something bad was going to happen. And then he knew just what people to talk to get on his side. 25 through 35. All right. So now we're still talking about him. Now, with a large army, he will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south. The king of the south will wage war with a large and very powerful army, but he will not be able to stand because of the plots devised against him. Those who eat from the king's provisions will try to destroy him. His army will be swept away, and many will fall in battle. The two kings, with their hearts bent on evil, will sit at the same table and lie to each other, but to no avail, because an end will still come at the appointed time. Where am I going to? 35. I lost my dot. The king of the north will return to his own country with great wealth, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant. He will take action against it and then return to his own country. At the appointed time, he will invade the south again. But this time, the outcome will be different from what it was before. Ships of the western coastlands will oppose him, and he will lose heart. He will turn back and vent his fury against the holy covenant, meaning Israel. He will return and show favor to those who forsake the holy covenant. His armed forces will rise up to desecrate the temple fortress and will abolish the daily sacrifice. Then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. With flattery, he will corrupt those who have violated the covenant, but the people who know their God will firmly resist him. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword, or be burned, or captured, or plundered. When they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end, for it will still come at the appointed time. Again, that's repeated. Whenever anything like that is repeated in the Bible, it's something to pay attention to, something to be reminded of, usually something we can find hope in. So in verses 25 through 35, Antiochus will invade the south, but will not succeed. Rome is helping the south this time. So again, this is still our history, Daniel's future. Antiochus will be humiliated and furious, so he turns his wrath on the Jews. He ordered that anyone worshiping God be put to death. Any of this sound familiar? Sacrifices to be stopped, scriptures burned, and for an altar to Zeus be built for pig sacrifice in the temple. Abominable.
Why specifically pigs?
Because for a Jew, that is a very unclean animal. That is the lowest of the low. And to have that in their temple of God, their temple of worship, is the absolute worst thing you could do, because you have that's why it's called the abomination of, of desolation.
Verse 31.
Thank you. Yeah, then they will set up the abomination that causes desolation. All right, where was it? Abominable. In the study that I was reading, it says, this is the same attitude that Hitler had when he tried to wipe out the Jewish race. It also gives us a picture of what Jesus said would happen just before his return. The world leader will be in the temple declaring worship of himself as God. He will not go there right away saying that he is God. What the scripture says is that in the beginning, he will almost sound like a man of God. He will say stuff that's in the Bible, and he says enough of it that you almost think, wow, that sounds like it. But if you really know what the Bible says, and if you listen to that still small voice in you that's leading you, the spirit that's guiding you, There will be something in there that's not quite right, not totally true. A lot of it will be, a lot of it will come from Scripture, not all of it. Then, once he has control, once people have put their faith in him, enough people, not everyone, enough people have put their faith in him, he will then go to the temple and declare himself God. All right? In that, though, I need you to notice the good news. Those who know God will display strength and take action. It talks about them here. Many will fall by the sword, be burned, captured, or plundered, but they're also going to receive some help. Some of the people that help them aren't sincere. Some of the people are actually trying to get in there to hurt them. But the fact they're in there and helping a little, thinking that they're going to hurt them, they're actually helping some. So as much as they want to do, it's still all falling under God's plan. A lot of these verses, when you go through them, the ones that are history, can be proven in our history books, even though they were a future event for Daniel. This is all what Daniel dreamed hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But by going through our history books, we can find evidence of this dream coming true, coming to pass. All right, verses 36 and 37. The king who exalts himself. The king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, small g, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods, the one true God. He will be successful until the time of the wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers or for the one desired by women, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. This king has not come yet. And if he is here, if this person is on earth now, he has not revealed himself yet. Both Christians and Jews agree, doesn't happen often, but on this they do agree, that there's a gap of time between verses 35 and 36. It doesn't flow. There's, when they're talking about this king and that those who support him will fall, and then you talk about the king will do as he pleases, there's a gap there. It seems like it's all one thing, but they agree that there seems to be a missing piece in time there, because 36, that king hasn't shown up yet. This new king will do as he pleases. He will recognize no rule or authority either in heaven or on earth, to embody Satan's desire to be like the Most High. He will have opposition, but no one will be able to stop him. He will use religion to propel his position until he directs all worship unto himself. Like I said, he's going to come in and he's going to sound like he knows what he's talking about. He's going to sound like he has all the answers. But when you listen and really listen, then you're going to notice something's not right. Verses 38 and 39. All right, so he will have no regard for any god, but will exalt himself. Instead of them, he will honor a god of fortresses. A god unknown to his fathers, he will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and costly gifts. He will attack the mighty fortresses with the help of a foreign god, and will greatly honor those who acknowledge him. He will make them rulers over many people, and will distribute the land at a price. The god of Antichrist will end up being war. The god that helps him is Satan. The beast refers to Antichrist. In one version, it doesn't mention the beast here. In one version I read, the help of a foreign god was actually the help of a dragon in one version, and another version said beast, a great beast. Okay? My version, my NIV study version, says foreign god. All right? He's referring to Satan. Where'd I go? I lost my spot. Here we are. So the king will do as he pleases. He will recognize no rule or authority, right? And in here, he will have, from Satan, he will have the power to perform false wonders and signs. He'll be able to do things that no one has seen in a long time. Might seem magical, might seem godly. It will certainly be something to get your attention, to make him stand out in a crowd. Those who do not know the one true God will be deceived, and those who follow the Antichrist will be rewarded. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of hope here, does it? There is. There's still good news. All right, verses 40 through 45. At the time of the end of the king of the south, the king of the south will engage him in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships. He will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, Israel. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon will be delivered from his hand. Some people are going to be spared in this. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control of the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and Nubians in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. Finally, a bit of good news. Right at the very end. So in these verses, this reminds us not everyone will follow the Antichrist, and this will enrage him. This will lead him to invade Israel. Many countries will be taken by force, but some will be delivered from him. He will set up his headquarters in Jerusalem, where Christ will rule. The Antichrist will meet his end. Before that, though, all of this must take place, for this is the Lord's plan. Why is it his plan? That's in chapter 12. We'll study that next time. There is good news, though. Any questions on what we covered tonight? That was a lot to take in, a lot of king of the north and king of the south and back and forth and back and